My name is Dominic. I'm a city planner, and I focus on land development, land use, transportation planning, and economic development. First, I'll explain the technical and obvious way of how to become a city planner, and then I'll tell you how to really become a city planner. Technically, you get a bachelor's degree in really any field, and then you apply to master's programs in urban planning. The urban planning programs are called different things by different universities. Sometimes it's a master's in urban planning, sometimes it's urban and regional planning, urban and environmental planning, city and regional planning. It's important to look into different graduate programs that align with your interests. Some programs are more design-based, others are more research and policy-based, and others are more for practicing planners. I went to Tufts University for my master's in urban and environmental planning because that program was more geared towards people who want to be a practicing planner. I knew going into it that I wanted to work for a city or town in a planning department, so that program made the most sense to me, and it also was the least expensive. So you have your master's degree in urban planning. These are typically 2-year graduate programs, and then you can start applying for jobs as a city planner. You can work for a government, you can work for a city or town planning department, or you can work in the private sector for an engineering firm or for a development firm who is actually looking to build things. You can work on the permitting and design aspects of the project. You can also work in the nonprofit space. I know a lot of people who work for affordable housing organizations to try to help them build more housing. Now that I've stated the obvious, I'll tell you how you can really become an effective city planner. First, observe. You don't have to travel. You don't have to go to Barcelona superblocks. You don't have to live in New York City. You don't have to visit a 15-minute city like Paris. Just observe what is most accessible to you. Start by observing any public space. First, spend time at a place you like. This can be the street you live on. This can be a main street in your town or city center. This can be a street you really like driving on or walking along. It can be a building you really like. What do you like about it? Why do you like going to that street or that place or that park? Write down the characteristics that you notice. How big are the buildings? Are there people there? What's the material of the buildings, the sidewalk? Does a sidewalk exist? What times of the day do people usually frequent this street or place or park? How do people get to this place? Do they take public transportation? Do they drive? Do they walk? Do they bike? Can they do any of those options, or do they have to use only one mode of transportation? What is it about that environment that you like? You might not know the answer to this until you go and people watch there for a little bit. Now, go to a place or a park or a street or a neighborhood that you don't particularly like. What is it about the built environment there that you notice? What is it about that place that you don't like? Maybe it's a street that always has a lot of traffic. Maybe it's an intersection that's extremely difficult to cross, whether by car or on foot or by bike. People watch there too, and write down what you notice. Write down the pain points of that area and the characteristics of that environment. Compare this place that you don't like with the place that you do like. Understanding the issue through observance will help you significantly when you're sitting down with professionals in the urban planning space to come up with a solution to the issues you identified in the place that you really don't like. Second, go to meetings. It's not enough to just know how the world should be and how cities should operate and what makes a city beautiful. You need to go to the arenas where decisions are being made on the public land and private land and see who has the authority over these decisions. In planning, 3 of the most significant arenas are the city and town council, the zoning board, and a planning board. Land use decisions are made at the local level, so go to the local level. Go to many of these meetings, not just 1 or 2. Get a feeling for how the decision makers make decisions. At the city or town council, they're probably going to meet at least once a month. See who's involved in this decision-making process and the types of issues that come before a city or town council that involve planning. If you go to multiple meetings, you're going to see decisions be made on topics that got you interested in city planning. You'll learn what these organizations have authority to do and the authority not to do. Go to your local zoning board meeting. What is the applicant asking of the zoning board? Did the zoning board grant the relief requested? What criteria did they have to use to make that decision? Did members of the public get up and speak for or against? Were members of the public allowed to speak? Did the applicant have any experts testify? Was there an attorney? Was there a developer? Was there an architect? Was there an engineer? What does zoning relief mean? What is a pre-existing non-conforming use or structure? Go to your planning board meetings. A planning board or a commission is going to hear applications on large land development projects. What type of development is being proposed in front of this planning board? Who represented the applicant? Did they have experts testify? Did they have an architect? Did they have different studies like a traffic study, an environmental impact? Did the board ask them for these things? Did members of the public ask them for these things? What did members of the public say? And how did the board vote? Third, read. Read as many books as you can and read deeply in the area in which you're interested. Don't just be an expert on planning. Become an expert on what got you interested in planning. Are you interested in law? Are you interested in architecture? Are you interested in urban design? Are you interested in economics or land use? Are you interested in transportation planning? Really read as many books as you can on these topics and dive deep so you can become an expert in the area that you really love about planning. Read the zoning ordinance. Find your local community zoning ordinance and read it. Read every page of it. It may not be the most intuitive document when you take your first pass at it, but if you're going to city or town council meetings, you're going to zoning board meetings, and you're going to planning board meetings, you're gonna really start to understand that document very well. You'll get a really deep understanding of the vocabulary by reading it and seeing it in live action through going to the public board and commission meetings. The places we live around are built based on the text of these documents. So it's really important to actually read the documents to see what developers and attorneys are looking to when they're submitting their applications to city planning departments. You will be miles ahead of any of your graduate school classmates if you do decide to go to graduate school, if you've already been to these meetings and you're reading the zoning ordinances and land development regulations. Number 4 is talk to everyone. And talk to planners last, all right? You don't need to hear from a planner. Talk to attorneys. Talk to a city solicitor who has to represent a city before a zoning board or a city council and how they understand the land use regulations. Talk to an architect who's designing buildings in your city or town. Talk to an engineer who is designing the roads and the parks in your community. Talk to a developer who is trying to build more housing in your community. Developers will be more than happy to share the pain points with anybody who's willing to listen to them. You can start with reaching out to the lawyer who represents your city or town. If they don't know land use law very well, they'll put you in touch with an attorney who does. And you can start to ask them questions about their experience with city planners and with housing development or transportation planning, whatever area of planning you're interested in. Talk to bankers who are financing projects you're interested in. If you're interested in housing, talk to a banker who's financed a housing project. Talk to an attorney who's represented a developer. Talk to a developer who has built housing. If you're wondering, how do I meet a developer, an attorney, a banker, an engineer, or an architect? Well, if you're going to city council meetings, if you're going to a zoning board meeting, if you're going to a planning board meeting, you'll meet all of these people there, and you can catch them in the hallway and you can really network there and just introduce yourself, and they will be so happy to share their knowledge and expertise for the most part with someone who's genuinely interested in their craft and their expertise. Understanding these perspectives will help you immensely when you're trying to update or change the regulations that you think are currently inhibiting the built environment that you want to see. Number 5 is to get a master's degree in urban planning. Now, I only say this because it's what I did, and I really only did it because when I was originally applying to jobs to become a city planner, even the most entry jobs required a master's degree in urban planning. But most of what I have learned as a city planner has come through my experience as a city planner, working in a city. So I highly recommend not letting that stop you. If you don't have a degree, start now. Start becoming a planner now. Don't wait for someone to tell you you're a city planner. Just become a city planner. And I'm going to tell you exactly how to do that. Number 6, do it. Become a planner. Observe the built environment. Identify the pain points and the problems you see in the built environment, and then identify solutions and work to implement those solutions. These are some of the things that I did before having my graduate degree that you can do too to become a city planner. First, you can conduct your own studies on things and topics that you're interested in. I went to a local planning board meeting before I was in graduate school that talked about a lack of parking on a certain street, that we can't have any more development on a certain street because it didn't have enough parking. So I went to this street and I documented the amount of vacant parking spaces. I did this a couple different nights a week and on the weekends, and I tracked it in an Excel. And what I found was that there was plenty of off-street parking. You don't need to pay a traffic engineer to identify the amount of vacant parking spaces on a street at a certain time. People have extremely predictable behavior. If a street is usually free of parking at a certain time on a certain day, it's usually like that consistently throughout the year. If you've been going to different planning board meetings or commissions, then you will know the decision makers in your community who might actually be able to use that information that you've developed in your study. You can even try visualizing it through creating a map or some way to visualize the data. Number 2 is to create your own plan. Is there a park or street in your city or town that you think should be improved? And you have ideas on how to do that. Create that plan the best way you can. You can use PowerPoint. You can use the most elementary tools you have available to try to convey that information. The trained professionals are going to use their software. They're going to use AutoCAD. They're going to use whatever they need when they go out to bid or actually implement the project. All you need to do is to create that initial idea and that initial plan. But also within that plan, think about how to actually finance your plan. When you're thinking about how to actually pay to implement this plan, be extremely resourceful. Are there different grants that are offered by the state? Are there different funding sources that the city might be able to use? Really get creative when thinking how to fund and implement a plan that you have. Bring the design, bring your idea, bring the solutions to the relevant stakeholders of that issue. Again, if you've been going to public meetings, then you will know who the stakeholders and the decision makers are in the community in which you want to create that change. Number 3 is to join a board or commission. I joined the Economic Development Commission in the city in which I lived because I was interested in economics. So that gave me the actual foot in the door and a real good hands-on experience of what it's like to be on a board or a commission, what it's like to be in an arena that makes decisions. And I was able to see the different plans and what's being built where in the city because I was going to these meetings. I was involved in a board. I was involved in a commission. And you really learn a lot by doing. A lot of cities and towns have a variety of boards and commissions. There's conservation commissions, there's arts councils, there's historic district commissions. Find a commission or a board or a group that fits your interests, that aligns with something you're passionate about, and join that group or board in your city or town. It's a great way to network, and it helps you actually contribute to the community that you would like to plan in. If you do these things, you will be a practicing city planner. And if you decide to work for a city or town as a city planner, you will be so far ahead of the game because you'll have taken all these reps by attending the meetings, by joining a board or commission, by trying to create your own plans with the tools that you have available. You can even hand draw your plans if that's the best way you're able to communicate your vision of how a place should be or look. It's like music or sports. The more reps you take, the better at it you will be. To summarize being a city planner, observe the built environment around you. Again, it doesn't have to be the major city. It can be wherever you're interested in improving. You observe, you identify pain points, you identify issues, you identify things that you think can be improved. Then you identify solutions on how to fix those issues or those pain points or how to make the actual improvements. And then you work to actually implement them. A lot of times, these projects take many years, but it is so fulfilling and it's so much fun to work with all these different disciplines every single day. So if it's something you're interested in and you have any questions on, comment below and I'll try to answer every question that someone has on becoming a city planner, and I can share my experience. If you're interested in planning, economics, land use, and local government, subscribe for more videos.